Tucker Carlson, okay, goes to Russia to sit down with Vladimir Putin. Rob, did you find a shorter version of the clip of what Tucker says? If you can find a shorter version of it, the world lost their minds when this man announced that he's going to Russia to sit down with Tucker Carlson and to sit down with Vladimir Putin. The amount of reaction that people gave is absolutely wild. Let me read the Newsweek story. And some people don't even want him to come back to America, by the way. Here we go. Tucker Carlson could face sanctions over Putin interview. Newsweek story. European Union lawmakers, such as former Belgian Prime Minister Guy Verhofstadt, are contemplating sanctions against Tucker Carlson following his revelation of an upcoming interview with Russian Vladimir Putin. He characterized Carlson as a mouthpiece for Putin and former President Donald Trump, advocating for potential travel bans within EU countries. Can you imagine this? That he cannot travel to EU countries. The EU's External Action Service, EAS, would require concrete evidence to present to the European Council for any sanctions against Carlson, a process that could be prolonged due to the balance of direct sanctioning authority for individual parliament members. Critics highlight concerns over Carlson's sympathetic portrayal of Russian policies and his platforming of Putin, accused of war crimes, suggesting that such actions could compromise journalistic integrity and warrant sanctions. Now, Rob, if we can play a part of the clip of what Tucker is saying while he's in Russia, go ahead and play this clip in and we'll react to it.
And they do that mostly by omission. For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they've done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky, and we hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews. They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like he's a new consumer brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice. That's wrong. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House.
How do you debate that, right?
But they're trying anyway.
Okay, you can pause it right there. By the way, while you're seeing this, can you play the Hillary Clinton one? I just want to kind of give the contrast of what here's Hillary Clinton on, I believe it's MSNBC or NBC, whoever it is. Go ahead and play this real quick. Go for it.
Is in Moscow right now interviewing Vladimir Putin.
Right.
The first American, I'll say, journalist to interview Putin since the war in Ukraine began. What does that tell you about Tucker Carlson and right-wing media and also Vladimir Putin?
Well, it shows me what I think we've all known. He's what's called a useful idiot. I mean, if you actually read translations of what's being said on Russian media, they make fun of him. I mean, he's like a puppy dog. You know, he somehow has, after having been fired from so many outlets in the United States, I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with a Russian outlet because he is a useful idiot. He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview.
She wearing a straitjacket, Pat? She has buckles on her. Like what?
So how do you process this, Tom? Where are you at with this here?
Well, first of all, remember the first rule of liberal attack in the medium: accuse the other guy of what you're already doing. 100%. She's quoting useful idiots, which was the people that were in Hollywood and the news media when communism was trying to infiltrate in the late 50s and 60s.
That's a phrase Karl Marx would use a lot.
Useful idiots. So isn't it interesting? Excuse me, let me back up, red line, back up. Intriguing and ironic that Hillary Clinton would use the term useful idiot, number one. And number two, I marvel at the way the left derives the opportunity to hear another viewpoint, even if you think that other viewpoint is full of crap. And by the way, we used to call that a presidential debate, where your guy would be on stage, you thought the other guy was full of crap, right? But we wanted to hear it just the same, didn't we? As Americans, we wanted to hear both sides, we wanted to see what they have to say. And going back 1977, they had a hero in media. Her name was Barbara Walters. Let's take a look at this. Rob, look at what Glamour says when Barbara Walters passed away. In 1977, Barbara Walters boldly went to Cuba to interview Fidel Castro, who was this dangerous communist dictator that we were all upset about. And this is Barbara Walters' interview. Clips are going viral in honor of the broadcast icon. These were clips of her interviewing Castro. What is the difference between Barbara Walters going to interview Castro during the Carter administration on the eve of Jimmy Carter getting fired and replaced by Ronald Reagan, and Tucker Carlson on the eve of her retirement, Barbara Walters recalls a history-making interview with the Cuban president? This is Harper's Bazaar. These were quality publications going out and just absolutely lauding Barbara Walters, who was an icon of the one-on-one interview before Larry King. She was the GOAT of a one-on-one interview, and there's a lot of interviews she did that were really good. She dove down and asked the question. She's a hero for, against U.S. government wishes, sneaking into Cuba and interviewing Castro. And now here we are these years later, how quickly we forget. And suddenly Tucker Carlson is the useful idiot interviewing Putin.
Well, first and foremost, why won't she just go away? I don't know about everybody else out there. I am sick and what is her point of, who wants to hear what Hillary Clinton has to say about anything? Nobody cares about you. Anything that wants, if we want to talk about Russia and Putin, how about you being the problem? Because people are still talking about it today, 7 years later. Russian collusion. Trump was you ruined, single-handedly ruined friendships, families, fighting, everything was Russia for the entire presidency. So I can care less what she's saying, let alone what she's wearing with her freaking straitjacket. But think about this, Pat. 60 Minutes interviewed Putin. It was journalism. Megyn Kelly. It was journalism. Bloomberg interviewed Vladimir Putin. Journalism. Oliver Stone interviewed Putin. Journalism. Tucker Carlson goes, it's treason. And you know why? Because during all those times, we weren't at war with Putin. Right now, they are begging to fight with this guy. And if we have somebody like Tucker that's going to actually talk to him and find out reason and stuff like that, they can't have that happen. And again, and I always say this, thank God for Elon Musk, Patrick, because if it wasn't for Elon, because this is Tucker on X, you would never, ever see this or hear this, and they are going crazy. And I absolutely love it that this guy spent billions for us to be able to hear this guy so people can make up their minds either way. I think it's a great thing.
Great point, Adam.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people have to do their job. Financial advisors, they manage money. CPA, they handle your taxes. Whether you're an editor, you edit. Whether you're a coder, you code. If you're a basketball player, you shoot the ball. If you're a journalist, you interview people.
Yep.
That's just what your job is. He said specifically, I watched that whole 5-minute clip, it's our job as journalists. Megyn Kelly weighed in. She said, it is our duty as journalists to inform people. So this is doing your job. Second thing, the truth. People want to know the truth. He talks about this in his 5-minute clip a ton. They want to know the truth that they're paying for this. The American people are paying for this. 2 years later, most Americans are not informed of what's actually going on in Ukraine and Russia. Not that I'm rooting for Russia. We want to know the truth. Number two, they want to know the truth about the human disaster, the long-term effects of this, the post-World War II economic order. What's going on with that? What's going on with NATO? Are they paying their 2%? Everything goes on with that. He goes on to speak more about the truth. The mainstream media, they're corrupt. They're omitting everything. They may not lie, but they'll omit. So plenty of journalists have interviewed Zelensky. We've seen Zelensky how many times do an interview? Dozens, all the time.
He won't shut up.
So it's
Cover
just
of Time magazine.
Yeah, there you go. Man of the Year in 2022. And by the way, speaking of Man of the Year, you don't have to agree, or they don't have to be a good guy or a bad guy. I think Hitler was Man of the Year of Time magazine in the 40s. So I'm not saying that Putin is Hitler, but the last thing that Tucker talked about was love. Love. He says, I'm not here because I love Putin. I'm actually here because I love the United States. And I'm not encouraging you to agree with Putin. I'm encouraging you to watch this.
Yeah, listen.
So it's important. And then last but not least, he gave a shout out to Elon Musk for not suppressing or blocking the interview, and he promised to put it up. But he said Western governments will do their best to censor the video. And then he ended it with, don't be a slave. Watch the video. Think for yourself.
PBD, what do you think?
So a couple things. You know, you make very good points, Tom, when you're talking about Barbara Walters. Mike Wallace, I don't know if you've seen the documentary about Mike Wallace, phenomenal documentary on what he did, his life, the people he interviewed. And then, you know, he interviewed Khomeini. Have you ever seen, can you pull up Mike Wallace interviews Khomeini? Just type in Khomeini. It's a very easy name to spell. Just Mike Wallace interviews Khomeini, Khomeini. Come on, Rob. That's easy stuff.
Come on, Rob. Khomeini. What's wrong?
Go to images. Yeah, right there. Just go to images. Okay. He's sitting right there interviewing Khomeini.
Wow.
You know how many people that man killed?
Yeah.
Do you know how many people he killed? And by the way, Mike Wallace was worried for his life till last minute.
I'm sure.
And some of the questions that they're asking, they're like, I'm not going to ask the question. I'm not going to ask him that question. I need you to ask. I'm not going to ask him that question. And he was celebrated. Mike Wallace also interviewed. I believe Mike Wallace. Go type in Mike Wallace interviewed KKK. What was the guy's name that he interviewed? He was Eldon Wallace or something. Right there. Look at this. Mike Wallace is sitting there interviewing the main wizard, you know, or imperial wizard of KKK, and you're learning about this person. You want to learn about the enemy. Now, having said that, the one thing Hillary Clinton said where she's wrong, because she's just a lot of lip service. When you've had a career where the catalog is that big, and you can draw lines that you just give lip service to. Sometimes senior pastors do that. They no longer prepare for their speech. They're no longer prepared to preach because they've given 3,000 messages, right? So what do? You just give the same story of the same this and the same that, and then a new 32-year-old comes in, fires up the crowd as a new bunch. Your church goes fired up because you're just kind of saying the same thing. She doesn't know how the Russian people are reacting to it. Let me tell you, a guy who cannot stand Putin, a Russian man who can't stand Putin, cannot stand the fact that what he did to Zelvani, what was his name? What is the guy that was running against him? Alexei Navalny?
Navalny.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, they wanted him to win. A guy that's pro-Navalny guy, a reporter, says, yeah, you know, he's probably going out there to do the interview with Putin because Putin's, Tucker is for Trump and Tucker is for this, and he's going to, and then the guy says, the interviewer asks him, so how is the Russian media treating Tucker being there? He says, I don't know why, but they're celebrating. They're loving Tucker. They're treating him so well. They're treating him royally. They're commenting on every single move he makes. He just bought this. He just went here. He just ate here. And they're celebrating the fact that a person from U.S. is coming to interview him, because one thing about many of the Russian people, they actually admire the American way because of capitalism and all this stuff. This is a guy that cannot stand Tucker, and this is a guy that cannot stand Putin. And then he says the following to hold Tucker accountable. He says, here's the thing. We're going to see if this is going to be a real interview or not. We're going to see if Tucker's going to ask about the journalist that Putin killed. We're going to see if he's going to ask about eliminating his opponents. We're going to see if Tucker asked a tough question. I think Megyn Kelly also said this when she was commenting. So listen.
That is a concern.
By the way, guys, here's how the market works. The market works in a following way. The other day, we uploaded a video on Valuetainment Comedy, right? And, oh, my God, do we take it down? Look at the comments, all this. I said, no.
I wanted to.
Leave it. I said, leave all the videos. Why? Because our talent, we need to see that the audience hates it. Say it. And then we sit and we feel like shit and we improve, right? That's called capitalism. Sometimes you got to lose publicly and have that humiliating loss that destroys your ego, and you go home and you either become a little female dog, there's a word for it, I don't know what the word is, but or you come out and you do something about it, right? Yeah. You either become and say, this one. So for Tucker said something very interesting right there. He held himself accountable. You know what Tucker said? Tucker said something very powerful. And when you say something like that, that is revealing that you're going to do a tough interview. What did he say about Zelensky? What did he say about all the media outlets that interview Zelensky? What was the words he used?
Propaganda?
He says all they're doing is just doing basic, easy interviews and propaganda, right?
Yeah.
So guess what, Tucker? If you say something like that, you better do a tough interview with Putin because you can't say that and then not do that.
Fully.
So if he says that, that tells you he's asking the tough questions. Now, Putin's a what? Putin's at this phase, when you get to that point, you're a professional communicator.
Of course.
You've sat down with killers. You've sat down with people that want to take you out, KGB. You've sat down with bosses. You don't think that guy has done some heavyweight sit-downs where he knows? The guy understands optics. The guy understands eyeballs. The guy understands his own opponents internally, the people that hate him in Russia, the people that hate him in America. The guy understands election year 2024. The guy understands how much Biden's going to... The guy understands all of that because Putin is a gangster. Gangsters understand this stuff. His life has been on the line for many, many years. People internally wanted to kill this guy. Morning Joe, can you play this clip on what Morning Joe's reaction has been to this, by the way? Because, again, Karine Jean-Pierre was even asked about it. Watch this one here. Go for it, Rob.
A Republican Party that is now doing Vladimir Putin's bidding. Donald Trump always did.
Yeah.
But the Republican Party now in the House is doing Vladimir Putin's bidding, and somebody that we know, that we used to know, going over, doing Vladimir Putin's bidding, attacking Western journalists, saying if only Western journalists would have come over here and tried to even report fairly on the war. Well, there have been Western journalists that have gone over and tried to report fairly on the war. And they're in jail. They're in gulags right now with the person because Vladimir Putin doesn't want really Western journalists going over and asking honest questions, fair questions. He'll let puppets talk to him, but nobody else.
You can pause.
Yeah, he'll let us.
Okay, by the way, good point.
Yep.
It's a good point that, going out there asking questions. But now here's
He has to ask about this guy, Evan Gershkovich.
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Would you consider Morning Joe a journalist?
At this point, he's more of a pundit than a journalist.
I think there.
Was he at one point a journalist?
No, he was a congressman. I think he's a former congressman, Republican. I came in with the Tea Party back in the day, and now he's
A political
talking
activist.
head
He-
on MSNBC.
So
I wouldn't say
somebody
he's a
just comments on it. He's not a journalist.
He's not reporting.
I would- yeah,
well,
he's
let's
not a-
go type in Morning Joe and see how Wikipedia defines who this Joe guy is. Let's go to Joe Scarborough, who, by the way, I think I actually like some of the stuff he says. So if you can go to Joe Scarborough and read his Wikipedia, is he categorized as a journalist or a pundit?
He's an American television host and political
Attorney,
commentator.
commentator, and former congressman.
He's a host, Pat. He's a
So
host.
he's a commentator.
Yeah, that's
okay,
it.
can you go to Tucker for a second and type in Tucker Carlson and see what it says about Tucker Carlson? Yeah, go to Tucker Carlson. How does it define who Tucker is? Just go to his Wikipedia. There you go. How does it define Tucker Carlson?
Conservative political commentator.
Again, commentator. So neither one of them are. So they see this same thing. Okay, here's the difference, Morning Joe. Got a question for you, brother. You're a good-looking guy. You're well-spoken. You were a conservative who went to a liberal school and you were destroyed the entire time. And you kept debating and fighting and getting better at it until all of a sudden you just became a mouthpiece yourself. Hey, have you at all decided to travel out of that behind your desk and go sit down with some other people in other countries and maybe kind of give your angle of the story? Have you done that? Or is it just comfortable going to the same restaurants, the same clubs, the same places? Are you willing to get on a plane and go interview some of these people? I don't know. Did Joe go to the border? Has Joe gone to Maduro? Has Joe gone to Zelensky? Has Joe gone to Russia? Has Joe gone to different places? So maybe you're a glorified podcaster is what you are. Cool. On mainstream media, and that's what you're doing. Meaning you're just kind of giving your opinions and thoughts. Why don't you do something about it? If you think the Western journalist isn't doing it, why don't you go approach these guys? And by the way, maybe he has. Can you type in people Joe Scarborough's interviewed? People Joe Scarborough has interviewed. Scarborough has interviewed. I'm curious. Maybe I'm wrong, and he's interviewed some interesting people. Adam, would you know who he's interviewed?
I haven't watched it in a little while, but he used to have a whole host of experts on the show, historians, admirals, generals, chief of staffs. He's had everyone. But it's not a lot of international coverage, from what I recall.
Does Tucker have, how many kids does Tucker have? Is it 3 kids?
3 or 4.
Rob, how many kids does Tucker have? You know how many kids does he have? Zoom in. Is it 4? Buckley, Hopi, Dorothy, Lily. Okay.
Tucker's such a type of guy that has a kid named Buckley.
So
I love it.
Well, William Buckley. Maybe that's why. I don't know why it's Buckley. But think about it from this standpoint. Okay. When you got a wife and kids and you make your millions, you know what most don't do? They don't want to leave anything within a 50-mile radius, and they don't want to go on the road. This guy's going on the road. Okay. This guy's going on. But we were the first one to sit down with, what do you call it? Tate after, he
was canceled.
All this stuff. Yeah. We went to Romania. You think it was okay? Okay, boom. And what was it like? You know what was it like? It was like, you ready? Boom, let's go.
Yep.
Everybody was waiting to let's go. Family, all this stuff. I respect a guy like Tucker who's got a wife and 4 kids that's willing to pause everything and go to Russia. You don't know how safe you are.
At all.
And by the way, he's doing it while the administration doesn't like him. Like, it's safe if you go talk to Putin if Trump's president. Do you know how risky it is to go while Biden's president? Because watch this. Let's play, a devil's advocate. Let's say he asks a question that pisses Putin off.
Let's say he does that. He's staying in Russia.
Okay, and let's just say Putin says, you know what? F you.
Grab him.
I told you don't ask those 3 questions. You ask those 3 questions, arrest his ass.
100% could do it.
Let's just say the chance of that happening is 1%.
Okay.
Let's say it's 5%. Whatever the number is, he arrests him, okay? Putin can say, screw you guys. Watch what you're doing with NATO. You never kept your word, America. Let's say he does that. Do you think Russia's going to release Tucker in 2024? You think Biden's going to go out there and do his best to release Tucker?
Hell no.
Hell
no.
to the no.
Nope.
So the fact that he did this, good for him. Now let's see how tough of an interview it's going to be. So what's going to come down to?
It's tonight. It's tonight at 6, right?
Is that what? I don't know when it is.
I'm pretty sure.
I'd love to know what security concerns were implemented here.
Well, that's a good, Adam. That's a great point you make up. As of right now, though, think about this: Tucker's wife, those 4 kids, the house, everything. Tucker's communication is all under surveillance. Everybody out there should know that, and it's going to be for a while. They're going to be watching his ass, and he's tapped because they already tapped him twice. They were monitoring him. So,
Tom.
God bless him.
Well, and by the way, note to Joe Scarborough. Congratulations in the ratings through December 30th, 2023. You are holding on to 124th place in the total ratings.
Are you joking?
Of shows on American television.
You're joking.
And you are only the number 9th most popular show on MSNBC.
Wait, are you joking?
I am not.
Where's that data?
I just went to it. I went to Deadline, which is a source of ratings, and the United States television database that says Morning Joe barely garners 967,000 viewers on an average day, 1,067,000 average on Fridays, is the 9th most popular show on NBC, currently trailing in 5th place. And
can you send that to Rob, Tom?
And number 124 overall on TV.
Tom.
Joe, maybe go out someplace and get something that people want to watch, and it would actually help your ratings.
Tom, can you send that to Rob Gargullo? Go ahead.
And you know what's crazy, though? And you know why, right? Because Trump... When Trump was in, that's all they did. All these people only existed because of Donald Trump. It was just Trump and Russia and spy and the phone call and Zelensky and all that crap. They're dying because they have nothing to talk about. Nobody wants to listen to Joe.
By the way, so check this out. This thing is going to get more views on one podcast than Morning Joe will get in a year and 9 months.
I agree.
Let me say that one more time, because if he averages 900,000 times
day,
5
million
is what?
on Friday.
4.5.
Yeah.
4.5 times 52 weeks is what? Roughly 220 million. 220 million times 1.5 is around 330 million. The interview on Twitter is going to get probably 400 million views.
Bananas.
So he's going to get more views on one podcast, Tucker Carlson, Mr. Joe, than Joe's going to get in 19, 20 months.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what it is. So good for you.
You're right. The market is going to decide really if Tucker can be taken seriously.
He's fighting to maintain that, Pat. Look at that. Those flat ratings. Morning Joe fighting to maintain his place.
Well, the market is going to decide whether Tucker is really who he is or if he just talks about it, because with the backdrop of what's going on with journalists, this guy, Evan Gershkovich, if you ever look at the Wall Street Journal, there's not a day that goes by that they're not talking about this journalist or giving a tribute to Evan Gershkovich, because he's been locked up in Russia. We saw what happened with Jamal Khashoggi with MBS in Saudi Arabia. Journalist hacked to death. In Tucker's last interview with Donald Trump. It was labeled a softball interview. That was the interview during the debates. So Tucker has a chance to show that I am the biggest, baddest, most credible journalist on the planet. And I'm going to sit face to face with Vladimir Putin, and the market will decide whether he is or not.
The one thing I hate, Patrick, I don't want to stand this. I know you want to move on. The one thing that I hate that everybody that's on the left always say, Putin's this murderer and he kills. And hold on a second. Guess what? We kill too. I don't know if you guys remember that guy, George Bush Jr., killed over with that war 1 million Iraqis, everybody all together for no war. There was no war. Does Putin have that many bodies under his belt? I don't think. I know he's a bird. He kills people, but we're bad too.
Way to embrace your inner Donald Trump, Vinny.
What? He's a Republican. What? George Bush Jr.
The famous. You think we're so innocent too?
Oh, I honestly don't even remember that. But guess what?
You don't remember that one?
No,
Trump?
I don't. I'm being genuine. No, but I love he's a killer. Yeah, so are we. We're really good killers.
Well, literally what Trump said.
So last time on Tuesday, we announced anybody that buys the Future Looks Bright hats and the gear, and we said we want 1 million people wearing this gear during these strange times. We want people walking around saying, hey, I believe future looks bright, and getting the reaction from other people when you wear that shirt. At the end of today's podcast, we'll be taking a raffle. We have everyone's orders. We'll take a raffle. 2 people will win a ticket, $750 to come to the Vol Conference. We'll be announcing that at the end of the podcast. On top of that, today, we have some stuff that we haven't given away. We're continuing this. We sold out of a couple of our hats, by the way, on Tuesday. Instantly, 3 hats sold out. But anybody that buys any of these gears, Rob, can we show this on the camera so people can see it? Pick any one of these hats and one of the Future Looks Bright shirts. Okay, go a little lower. You got the purple one. You got the white one. Pick any of these trucker hats for some of you guys that want the Valuetainment logo with U.S. flag next to it. We also got the PBD podcast hat there as well. You pick the black or white Future Looks Bright hat. Choose any of these combination hat and a shirt. You do. Next week, what we're doing is we'll be giving away one of the Ryan Garcia signed gloves, a Trevor Bauer signed ball, and 5 signed Choose Your Enemies Wisely live next Tuesday at the end of the podcast.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.